Recently it seemed like getting a table for Dad's wheelchair would be a good idea, but it turned out to be pretty much useless. It was too small, there was no way to mount the hardware to his chair, and basically it was just a piece of crap. Collecting a few tools over time and having even a small workspace lets you make those one-off custom projects that maybe you can't find or are ridiculously expensive. Making a custom tray had its requirements, and the first was that it be light, so I started with 1/8" plywood and braced it for stiffness. Adequate design planning can save making a lot of firewood, but when you're making a one-off project there are certain decisions to make, and sometimes those ideas just don't work out as well as you'd hoped. Sometimes after looking at the results you get a better idea, and sometimes you just want to try something out in a simple way before committing yourself to something that will take more time and or money. In that way, what we are really doing falls somewhere between a one-off project and a prototype. Since I had everything I needed for this in the shop, money wasn't an issue, but time was, so this needed to work pretty good the first time because I really didn't have time to do the whole thing over again. It didn't take long to saw out the shape and sand the edges. The next thing to do was to make the mounting brackets. This is part of the clamps that fit underneath and clamp onto the underside of the armrests. They can both be drilled at the same time. The other part of the clamp is a knob that I make from scrap pine. I keep this handy jig around to make them as needed. For threads, a T-nut is hammered into the middle and they're good to go. If you've ever had to buy these kinds of knobs, this is a good option that saves a little money. As part of the prototyping process, I found out that I needed a little bit more width on the tray to make room for the clamps. And yes, that is snow that's still on the ground. It's barely warm enough to spray the tray and get it back inside. Putting a finish on the tray is important because you have to be able to wipe it clean. For the person putting the tray on and removing it, it needs to be convenient with a minimal amount of fussing around. After testing it out in the real world, it was pretty obvious what needed to be changed, and I'll keep tinkering with it as time allows, but even as it is, it's well received. The biggest design lesson, though, is to see how important a simple tray has been in enhancing the daily life of someone with limited mobility.